So,
Okay, great. Well, just pivoting to the movie real quick. So,
which moment of the first and second movie is your favorite?
So I think any question which is prefaced with, is this your favorite, I struggle with, because I just don't think I feel like I have favorites in general. But I really like subtlety in film, and I really like non-verbal moments of intimacy and connection, even if it's not like romantic intimacy. Just so there's this moment during the first film, during the montage sequence. I mean, there's so many little moments with that like gorgeous song by is it Yoklaw? I think. Yeah, and
oh, it's so good.
You know, yeah, and you just get to see this like relationship between these two people, and it's not overt, and I really like that. And then I guess in the second film, Max, who plays Smith, is just
so cute,
cutest little actor in the world. But you know, I mean, following that thread of like, I guess, subtlety, I think there's a scene with Hero on the couch where it's just like two people having a conversation, and it's just it's like nothing dramatic. It's no screaming. It's just, you know, like human connection. And so yeah, I enjoy those moments in film.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
Same. For me, the first, I would probably say that same scene from the first one, and the music was perfect. In the second one, I'm just going to copy your answers, because any time where it's just like two normal people, like being normal, I'm not, as we know, I'm not a fan of like the super, super dramatic stuff. Despite what's in my books, but I like, from the first movie, what we felt like was kind of missing was the dialogue and the connection of normal young people. So I was happy for that couch scene, to have, even just to show, like, you know, that they can have conversations, is great.
Well, there's so much that you can convey in a look or in a moment that I think I just in general in film, I really like that when I get to see like sort of subtextual little moments, you know.
Yes. Yes. So who's your favorite? I feel so corny doing this.
I feel like I'm doing 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, especially because I'm trying to keep it away from like me and you having a like conversation and keep it like professional. So this was actually my question that I asked to edit the list that we were giving, because I wanted to know, who is your favorite character in a film ever, like of all time?
Yeah, okay, so this is really interesting. Okay.
I know you hate favorites, but
I know. I was watching Life of Brian recently, and there's this scene with Terry Jones. I know. There's this scene with Terry Jones, and he plays this naked guy in a hole who's been in silence for like 18 years, and I can't decide whether it's an extra who falls into the hole or whether it's Terry Jones himself, but there's just something about that character in that scene that just, it doesn't, it's so small, and it never ceases to make me laugh. And it was such a weird answer, but I think it's got something to do with like my views on just nudity in film in general. Like, not to go down that rabbit hole, but I think there's something very like empowering about nudity in comedy, because it's just so it's like intentionally gratuitous, and there's no falsity to it, and there's no like pretense, and it just looks like this actor who was like, do you know what would be really funny? If I just sat in a hole. But I mean, Life of Brian is set 2,000 years in the past. So I don't think that character would fit in this series.
Yeah, maybe he's the ancestor of someone. I mostly just like the part of the question. I try to make it about the movie, obviously, because it's, you know, we have a movie that's a help, but I just felt like what's your favorite character of all time was interesting. And then what do you look for taking a role when you're looking at, it's so weird to ask me stuff I already know, but
Yeah,
tell the internet.
yeah, for everyone else who doesn't know,
Yeah.
I'm like, should I be addressing the audience or no? It's
I,
just okay.
we'll just pretend it's us, and we're not really, but we'll like, yeah.
I, you know, it's interesting. I say this all the time, but it's true. I think intelligence in screenwriting, and you think that's a given, but it's really not. And it's not necessarily about a script that's like incredibly unique. It could be a simple story, but it's just told in a really nice way, and it's just written well. Writing's the foundation of a project, and the script's the foundation of a film or a TV show. So I look for good writing, but it can also be if there's a character that you feel really possessive about and you empathize with that person and you're like, oh, there's a part of them that I just want to like portray, or I do that, like you want to get out of it. Or I could just be working with people who are like really like, there's a lot of like amazing people attached to the project and you're like, that would be a really amazing collaborative sort of experience. So I think, I mean, there's lots of different reasons, and part of what attracted me to like this movie and this role, it was lots of those things combined. It was, you know, possessiveness over like the character, and there was also just this, I'm like, should I stick to the questions or can I ramble?
No, I think we could just ramble. That's probably more interesting.
Okay,
anyway,
great, perfect. That's my wheelhouse. There was this thread in the book that I was like, wow, this is a really interesting story if this is told effectively. And it's basically like childhood trauma and how it affects people differently. You have these two characters, both of which have alcoholics as fathers, and that had fathers that weren't really present. And then you have Tessa, who had, you know, a controlling and like probably verbally abusive at times mother, and Harden, who had a different experience. And he externalizes his pain, and she adapted to her pain in a different way. She sort of went into this like type A, you know, she focused on her work, and then through this relationship with each other, they realize you know, he realizes his red flags and she realizes things about herself. And I thought that's just such an interesting, like, I know that's probably a bit of like an alternative reading on it.
No, I mean, well, not for me. For me, I'm like, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Like, yeah. It's supposed to be more about the trauma of these two people and how everyone is different and everyone handles things differently. It's not, there's so much more to Harden and Tessa as characters, even if they never met each other, than just like the good girl, bad boy, leather jacket, virgin. It's like, it's just so, yeah. So I love that answer, obviously. And I think that is a lot of times, I think with film adapting wise, only from my experience, it's like they want to take the parts that they think are impactful without really like thinking of the story as a whole. So it's like you'll get the same scene, even something from like the book or whatever, and not only with mine but with other adaptations that I've read the books and watched the films, and they take this one thing and then they it's like, for me, I don't understand how everybody can pull different things from the same exact text, where my version of it is so far from some people's version of it that I'm like, yeah, but that's not. And for me, especially with After, because I literally created it, it's like what I went to write about wasn't necessarily what is conveyed by other people. Like if they don't get it, they just don't get it. And that's the, you know, beauty and pain of collaboration. But my things that I love the most about the story that I wrote is the trauma and how they're so different. And
well, yeah, and that's why vision's so important, because you can have the same text and it can be adapted in such different ways. And it's and then also, I mean, I think there was just like, what I mean by possessiveness about character is when you feel like you know that person and you're like, you don't want them to be a two-dimensional cutout. And you know, and like you have empathy. It's so easy, I think, for the annoying girl or this girl to be like played a certain way, or for like the bad guy to be played a certain way. And I think it's when you have empathy, it's always a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I know going back to even the first press tour, when someone, I can't remember what country or city or anything we were in, so I'm apologizing to the internet beforehand for not remembering, but
Mm.
someone asked you what, like something about Tessa being a good girl. And I love that you literally were just like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean she's a good girl?
I just really, I hate the words. I hate, I'm very into semantics, and I hate innocent and I hate naive, because I'm like, what do you, but I think but that just speaks to like psychology and finding it, like what does it mean to be annoying? Is annoying an objective thing, or is it subjective? What does it mean to be innocent? If she's had this upbringing where she's had a father who like abandoned her, and she's had all the, and she's innocent because she's sexually
Yeah.
inexperienced, well, is it, I think it's more complicated. It's about having like an optimistic worldview, and I don't know. I just, yeah,
Yeah, I think
words.
your answer for that is always great, honestly. And I think
Thanks.
yeah, I love anytime, well, just in general, I love when females particularly question a journalist if the question's like just like these compilations of, I watched another one last night of like a compilation of like Scarlett Johansson just being like, why do I, like, why are you asking me
It's
about my
great.
diet?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
Brittany Renner is getting these like brilliant questions. So I love just kind of, I don't know, I remember that mom movie being like, what does it mean to be a good girl? Is she, because that is something when people, for me, it's like, oh, you wrote the young version of 50 Shades, or you wrote the good girl, bad boy. And it's like, it is true. And I don't even know if I thought about it in the same way before you said that, of like, wait a second, what makes her so good? People can be, I mean,
Books.
yeah, yeah, she reads and she's a virgin. It's like, that doesn't make her good. Like, she's complicated. Like, I don't, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
we could talk about that for a long time. But anyways, do you have a do you have a sort of ritual for filming beforehand?
No. I try to brush my teeth, and I try to get everything done in 10 minutes before I head to set. And I can't do it in 10 minutes, but I just try, because it's like I'd rather have that extra 15 minutes of sleep.
Yes.
Um, do you have a ritual when you, I don't think I've ever asked you that, like that.
No, I mean, no,
Really?
it just every day I mean, we were there, so we know, but every day is so different, and every day
Yeah.
there's like a new thing to focus on or worry about or fix or whatever the case is.
Mm.
So I don't think I'm not experienced enough as a producer to have a ritual, I don't think, because it's been so like fast and stuff that I mean, I would love to sleep more in the future, because being on the last two films, I haven't really slept at
Yeah.
all. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to make that part of my ritual, is like trying to get extra sleep.
Yeah. Routine's so important. I need a routine. I just get bored by routine.
I know.
Like, yeah.
I know. I do the same. Like with Asher, he needs a routine every day. And then
Yeah.
for me, I'm the like, well, probably everybody, even the internet, I was say, you know this, but the internet probably knows I'm not a like structured person. I'm just never going to be that. I'm just all
Yeah.
over the place mentally. Like I'm not, if someone gives me a list of something, I will like go out of my way to not like
Yeah.
read the list correct. Like I'm just not a list graph person at all.
Well,
Um,
I mean, that's very much also how you write. It's not, I think it's why your writing has such a natural flow, because it's sort of just, it's not like you were talking about, where you go, okay, so on page 36, I must have this thing happen. It's very much like, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
yes,
Like,
exactly. It's pretty much like listening to me talk for 5 hours is like reading a book. Like it's basically the same thing. Um, let's see. Who do you think? Because I don't want
ooh.
us to not talk about the movie at all.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let me
yeah.
think. Who do you think Tessa would want to meet for coffee, dead or alive?
Jane Austen, because books.
Yes. Who would you want to meet for coffee, dead or alive?
I think, I mean, Shakespeare's a good, I think, just like placeholder answer, because I think it's pretty cool to be a guy who wrote stuff where like you still know his name 500 years later. But I don't know. What about myself? Could I
Yeah.
meet my future self? I wouldn't want to do that.
What about past self?
No, I would
I
leave them
right.
alone.
You're right. Yeah. Same.
Yeah,
Same.
what do you think?
Tessa for sure would be Jane Austen. For me, I don't know. I mean, I have also had a history of like really looking forward to meeting people, and then when I do, it's like the worst
Yeah,
nightmare, and I wish I never did. So
yeah.
I don't think I even want. I used to have like a 5 people I wanted to meet, and I've met
Mm-hmm.
4, and the last one I don't think I'll ever meet, and I never really have to want to.
Well,
But
this is why I struggle with the question. Another question you always ask in interviews is, do you have any role models? Who's your role models? And I don't, because I think if you don't know what someone's like in real life and you admire them and you go, man, I want to be just like them, then you're sort of saying that you don't care about their personal behavior. And there's so many people whose work is really amazing, but in person they're not good people. And so that's why I'm not saying you shouldn't. That's a ridiculous thing to say. Of course you can admire someone's
no,
work, and I think you can separate work and personal life, but it's why I struggle to have role models, because then what if you haven't met them, you know?
yeah, I think that was a big thing for me coming into the author world of having like literally grown up with some of the authors, grown up with them or read them even, in the last 5 years, and then meeting them now. It's a little hard. It's a little hard to some people. I literally can't ever read their books again because I know them and I'm just like, oh, this is not what how I imagine. So I very much miss those days of like being able to walk in a bookstore and not knowing the people. For film, it's already kind of the same situation, and I'm barely in it.
Well,
This is
it's
my third year.
blissful. It's blissful ignorance, and cancel culture is sort of eliminating that. And I think it's good. I think it's. I think there's something positive when work no longer excuses personal behavior to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because it's also like, well, at the end of the day, if there's a certain job or that's escapism based and entertainment based, then is it better to be ignorant, and is it better to sort of just, I don't know.
I know it's like with Hemingway is kind of a good example. Is like when I was a teenager, I literally, if someone said, "Who do you like want to marry?" I would be like, "Hemingway's my like soulmate." Now I'm like, Hemingway is like, I mean, granted he's deceased, so like, no offense if his descendants are watching this, but it's like, as much as I love his books, he was a very complicated man. He was, openly abusive to women and all this stuff. So now it's like when I'm quoting Hemingway, it doesn't really feel the same.
It's difficult, and then you're like, well, if you want to enjoy, do you have to separate the work from the personal life, or can you not separate it?
I think it's like case by case. We don't know, but maybe we'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
I lost the questions. Hold on.
I don't, I'm like, when are we meant to end this?
I don't even know. I think it's supposed to be 20 minutes. So 2 minutes ago. So let's do like 2 more questions.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
Yeah, like keep going for hours. Let's see.
Yeah, so anyone who doesn't, usually we just talk about stuff like this, about ethics and morality and,
yeah,
things we don't have answers to.
Yeah, a lot of time.
What does it feel like to watch your novel on the big screen?
There is an immense amount of like pride because of all of these people that have put so much work into the films, and people are touched by it. But it's also very hard. Especially when it's like taking I'm editing my answers as I'm speaking. It's hard when the story just sometimes can get so far from what's in my head, and the balance of collaboration and making sure that it's not only going to be a good story that I think as a 2-movie producer, which has hardly any experience, is good. But then there are certain things where I'm like, if people love it, why are you messing with it type of situations. So it's both great, but also incredibly like anxiety inducing. And I do the same with my books though. So it's not just because of my experience with the movies. If I go back and reread my books, I'm like, I don't understand how I ever got published or why anyone reads my work. So I think it's no matter what, it would be like that. But the film industry is just a different beast that I wasn't quite prepared for it to be like that. And I, even more so now, though, I want to dedicate even more of my time and energy to changing that, or at least a corner of it. Like I always tell you, like I'm trying to find my little corner.
Your little space within, Hollywood.
Yeah. If anybody knows where that is, let me know.
Yeah, please. I was just going to say, I don't think that's independent to being being an author. I think that's something very relatable to anyone who's creative in any capacity, or anyone who even just in the workplace, that balance between collaboration and control. And it can be difficult when you see things a certain way and someone else sees it a different way. But ultimately, like, I think you have to be open to that, because a lot of the time the best idea will come by collaborating, but then you just have to also know when to put your foot down and go, well, hang on, it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty I think, I mean, we've spent a lot of the last few years of our lives doing that together, like as a whole, not just me and you, but like as a whole, of like, for me, figuring out if the collaborating, there, some of the best kind of moments have come from that, but there are times where it's hard when I know that something, it just isn't, it doesn't feel right. And we're both becoming more
and it's I'm editing myself.
Same. I'm literally like, I'm not used to even having to do that, so I'm like
and I guess my last question is, did the feedback from fans for the first movie influence the second one?
Yes, it did. It's weird because it did, but it did in both ways, in ways of like, not everything can be the way that the fans want it to be. And sometimes the things like the Landon line, I've already told them all that the Landon line's not in there, but you were there as witness of like, it just didn't work.
Which one was it? It was
the one from the window, just because he loves you, it doesn't love you the way you want him to, doesn't mean he doesn't love you with everything he has. It's like, that's a perfect example of if Shane can't make it work, it's not possible.
If Shane, the most gifted, grounded, present actor, can't make, if it's not working, then the line is gone.
Just doesn't. Yeah, we tried. I mean, literally, we tried so many different ways
saying it.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of like the fan feedback of like, we want more lines from the book. It's like, you don't necessarily know what you're saying when you say that. It means it has to fit in. And I feel like with the second one, I
think for people, my interpretation of that is people just want, they want authenticity, and they want the theme and the heart of the book. They just want, you read something and you just like, I want this on screen, and I want more of this on screen. And I think that like that verbalizes as, well, we want more lines, and it might not actually be about the lines, it's just the overall sort of the heart. You just want to feel like it's the books,
that's the thing, that transferring that to like the people in charge is the hard part of like, it's not about this exact scene or about this exact line. It's about, they want to feel like they know the characters, and they want to see the parts of the characters that they love, not necessarily like, just because Hardin cusses more doesn't mean Hardin's closer to the book. It's because we have like, an argument for the first time and all these things, which I think I've already said it before. I'm positive that both of us have tried with the first one to get like a little more conflict, but it just wasn't there. And then the second one, we put the conflict, and that's, I think, why the movie. I
wanted them fighting during the montage sequence in the first movie. I wanted to throw a little fight in there just to make it real. But
Yeah, same. Yeah, so I think
I think we're well over the time thing.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the movie's already #1 in like Portugal, Germany, Italy, I believe Spain. If not, then I'm wrong, but who knows? But I know the movie's #1 in a bunch of places. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Joe, for doing an Instagram live. I will talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
I don't know how to.
I know. I save it.
Okay, you save it.
I have instructions here. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Bye.
Bye.